London.
Yes, we're listening to the Beat on 103.6 FM. Claudia here, and we are about to kick off a very special show in partnership with Brent Council and Brent Health Matters. Today we are discussing Black men and mental health. By popular demand, we had a very successful show last month where we discussed COVID-19, health matters and concerns within the Brent Council. We're back with another very special panel with experts, community members, and we're going to be discussing Black men and mental health. So make sure that you take down the studio line 0208 963 9566 in order to get involved with the conversation. We are live on Instagram Live, just in case you want to pop on your phone and get involved in the conversation there. And I'm going to allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Really excited to get involved in this conversation today, to be hosting this conversation. It's a very important one. And from the conversation we had last month, it was one that was really, really wanted by those in the community. So really excited to be having this conversation. So I'm going to start off with Dr. John Nichols, who was also a panelist last month. If you could just introduce yourself.
Thank you, Claudia. Good evening, listeners. Welcome. Thank you for listening. My name is Dr. John Licorish. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Health at Brent Council. Part of my role is responsibility for overall health, but with specific regard as a mental health. In addition, in a previous life, I worked in mental health services, and I was also responsible for commissioning and purchasing mental health services.
Amazing, thank you. And thank you for joining us again. Rebecca Bryne.
Good evening. Yeah, my name's Rebecca Byrne. I'm the Head of Service for Mental Health and Learning Disabilities teams in Brent. I joined Brent in July of this year. But my background, I have 30 years of experience in working with mental health services in other locations. I've also worked on the streets in the West End, starting my career there, working closely with young people, and obviously Black men were predominantly the group that I worked with at that time. So I've also got some lived experience myself in mental health matters and with my teenage children. So hopefully what I'll be able to contribute today is some of my lived experience and what we're thinking about in Brent for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Councillor Neil.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for inviting me on. My name's Councillor Neil Nerva. I represent Queen's Park Ward in Brent, but I suppose I'm on tonight because I'm also the lead member in the Cabinet for Public Health, Culture and Leisure. You could say well-being. I should say I've got I trained as a social worker, and I worked in mental health and learning disability, especially, for many years. What worries me is that we've been here before, and many of the issues which I heard when I was a frontline social worker remain the same today, about people's absence of confidence in services being able to deliver for them in a sensitive way. Currently, as lead member, I'm involved with colleagues on tonight in rewriting the Brent Health and Wellbeing Strategy. And I think this provides an excellent opportunity post-COVID, get it right. And I'm sure colleagues from Brent Health Matters will be talking about directly what they're doing. Thank you very much.
Amazing, amazing. Looking forward to having you on the panel. Vava?
Oh, hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Vava Tampa. I am a clinical lead at Bryne CMHT, which is the community mental health team in Brent. I'm a social worker by training. I co-lead one of Brent's localities. So my job in a nutshell is looking after, supporting, treating members of the community experiencing mental health needs or mental illness. And because I'm a Black man, I have a very specific interest in mental health. It's a subject I'm thinking about almost on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And we've heard from our specialists who are on the panel. I think it's very important that we also introduce and invite community members into this conversation. So I'd like to invite Derrick to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Derrick Ogole. I'm 26 years old. I'm a digital marketing lead at Edutainment, which is a youth organization that delivers youth programs to young people in the borough of Brent. One of the key programs that we deliver at Bang is Create Change, which is a creative arts therapy service, which is very much the established, very key service that is really important for young people to engage in. And so what I do is I work very closely with the arts therapists to devise their digital marketing in terms of engaging young people into therapy and actually devising a way to make sure that the therapy that we are promoting is very sort of positive and really about them coming to kind of express themselves and it's seen in a very positive light. And just in regards to my background in mental health, I've gone to therapy a few times. I've kind of learned to understand myself through family members who are also therapists. So I've kind of been very privileged growing up in terms of, you know, having access to people to talk to me, to guide me. And I've understood that a lot of young people don't have that same sort of privilege. And coming here and speaking today is pretty much an amazing opportunity. So
thank you so much, Derrick. It's important for us to include the community, so we're really happy for you to be involved in the conversation. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Errol, who is also a community member and a member of the team here at the Beat London, to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everybody, my name's Errol. I'm a volunteer in mental health. I've been doing it for 21 years. And of course, with that length of time, I've seen the changes or the not so changes within the Brent mental health structure. But it's with that experience of working with lots of young Black people, Black men in mental health is where I am here today. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, especially with a few of the councillors who are here from the local council. It's great.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Errol. That is our panel for today. If you've just tuned in, the Beat London has partnered up with Brent Council and Brent Health Matters to discuss Black men and mental health. We had a show last month where we discussed COVID-19 and health concerns within the council, and it was suggested that we should have a conversation about Black men and mental health, and we promised, and now we are delivering, and we're looking forward to having this conversation. Before we get into it and start tackling some questions, I'd like to invite Vava to introduce the topic at hand and define what mental health is before we get into it.
Thank you very much. So speaking about mental health in the Black community remains a taboo, perhaps the biggest. Yet Black people are at a higher risk of poor mental health because of all sorts of things, from colonizations to things such as poverty, unemployment, stop and search, and so forth. Similarly, outside the Black communities, exploring how colonization, how racism, and how Eurocentrism has affected and shaped the way society, the way psychiatrists treat mental health and support Black men remains another taboo. And quite because of that, research shows that Black men in the UK are 17 times more likely than their white counterpart to be diagnosed with serious mental health, 4 times more likely to be sectioned. We are also, as Black men, more likely to be prescribed with high doses of antipsychotic medications and less likely to be offered therapy when we seek mental health. So because of all those things, mental health in the Black community remains a taboo. Now, what is mental health? Many people often ask themselves. The way I often put it to other people is how your body reacts to poverty and inequality. How does your body react to stress? overcrowding in home, disease, even disaster, to COVID, to trauma, to war, to white supremacy, to stop and search, to domestic violence, to patriarchy? The answer is mental illness, things such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, psychosis. And these often we see in everyday life as substance misuse. So young men or women often using cannabis as a way of letting loose or keeping themselves calm or chilled. We also see in violence, in aggressions, in toxic masculinity. We even see it in blood pressure and in heart disease. So mental health is a subject which clearly is affecting Black people in ways in which we as a community simply we cannot ignore. And as a society also, we simply cannot ignore. And the question is, what are we going to do about it?
Amazing, thank you so much for that, Vava. Very, very important question in terms of what we're going to do about it. We're hopefully going to touch on that and get into that in this conversation. There's one more person that I'd like to introduce and invite to introduce themselves, should I say, and that is Mr. Mohammed.
Hi everybody. My name is Balfour. I am a mental health professional in Brent. I am a manager of the emergency duty team here. I'm also an AMP, an approved mental health professional, and also somebody who was born and raised in Brent. I live in Brent, and as a Black male born and raised in the UK and in London, this is a subject that is very close to my heart. So I'm very happy to be here.
Amazing, thank you so much, Balfour. And I think it's important that I also introduce myself. My name is Claudia. I'm one of the presenters here at the Beat London, currently presenting the breakfast show. It's actually coming up to my first year anniversary here at the Beat London. I'm really looking forward to hosting this event with you guys. I have two brothers. I'm a middle child. I have a younger brother and an older brother. So this conversation is something that I hold dear to my heart as well, especially growing up with a lot of men in my family. So I'm looking forward to learning and as well as getting involved with the conversation. So first question is, why is Black mental health such a pressing topic when it comes to Black men? We would like to take that one on. Derrick, would you like to start us off with that one?
Yeah, sure. I can actually start off. I can only speak from my own experience. And what I can tell, what I can express with you today is that one of the reasons why I think mental health amongst Black men is a pressing topic is the understanding of what therapy is and its purpose. And I feel like there's a very negative perception of therapy because of what you see in media and how it's portrayed. And I feel like the challenges that that as a Black man that I go through, and I can see some of my peers go through, therapy seems kind of something that you're not supposed to do, and you're supposed to be able to manage your own emotions and manage your own challenges yourself. And like I said in my introduction, I've had the privilege of having family members who are therapists and counselors, and always having that sort of the outlet, a person to talk to me. But for a lot of Black people and a lot of my male friends, therapy is something that you just don't do. And I can see that is the challenge. And I feel like the perception of therapy has to be changed for Black men and Black people to kind of see it as something that is there to help them grow within themselves. So I think that is the pressing, topic within Black men and mental health.
Amazing. Does anyone have anything to add to that? Can they resonate with that? Errol, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can understand where Derrick's coming from. We've firstly got to think about a lot of people from the Afro-Caribbean community. There's a stigma attached to when you say you have a mental health issue. You know, I think if we can address firstly that the stigma, that it's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. It's actually something that we all have, just some of us manage it better than others. And if we can start from that point, then maybe people will be a bit more open. Because I mean, in the last 21 years of me going to mental health institutions, it's become more apparent to me that more ethnic minorities are going in. It's not gotten less, it's just gotten worse. And now we've had the pandemic, we've not yet seen the repercussions of that. And I'm worried that there will be, in the next 12 months, the repercussions of a lot of our Black brothers and sisters coming into the mental health institutions due to just stress and anxiety and really not being addressed in a way of which I would do with counseling, more with medication. A lot of them, the medication's not what they need. A lot of them it's just counseling, you know. That's what I think. So we've got to deal with the stigma first, I think, because and get people to open up more, and then we can address it.
Thanks, Errol. You made a few good points. And
can I come in?
Yeah, yes, go ahead, Vava.
I think it's an interesting one because it's sort of, it touches on both sides. So on one side, you have within the Black communities, both in the Caribbean or at home in Africa and across the world in a nutshell, there is a century-old sense of survivalism. Basically, we have survived everything. As a consequence, things such as mental health, many people seem to belittle. Sort of say like, this is something small. We've gone through colonization. We've gone through apartheid. We've gone through Jim Crow in the US. We've gone through all of those kind of things. And because we've gone through all these kind of things, your anxiety, your depression, those are minute stuff. You know, don't bring it up on the table and so on and so forth. So there is that element, which plays a huge part. And there is, which leads to stigma and so on and so forth. And there is also another side to it. Because of that stigma, clearly many Black people, many Black men specifically, come to contact with mental health through the justice system, through the police, through stop and search, through the criminal justice system, and so on and so forth. And already we understand the relationship which Black men, specifically Black people in general, have with the police, and so forth. And that also does not help. It just makes the situation worse. So there is that second element. And the third element is what I mentioned before, which is within services within mental health services, psychiatrists or Black men being more likely, 17 times more likely to be diagnosed with psychosis, for instance, than their white counterpart, being more likely to be given high doses of antipsychotic medications. That also plays a huge part. So there are many elements to this which we need to be conscious about. So there is definitely issues and problems of stigma within the Black community, which plays a huge part. And then there is the second part of it, the fact that many of us come in contact with mental health through the justice system, which does not help. And clearly, psychiatry as a service also needs to reform. We need, psychiatry needs to reflect society a little bit more and understand Black people a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Vava. Both yourself and Errol made a few good points that I'd like to also highlight and repeat. Errol mentioned how he feels like mental health amongst Black men has actually got worse. And Vava's also mentioned how when it comes to pain within the community, in short, pretty much that it's been normalized. So it's something that's sort of expected that we continue to affirm and to power through. Does anyone have any more comments on why Black men and mental health amongst Black men is such a pressing topic?
Claudia, can I add?
John.
Yeah, I would just like to add to, I guess, the points that my colleagues are making, and just a couple more. I think we need to look at this a wider environmental issue in terms of, we look at mental health and health. We do know that Black men as a whole tend to have worse physical health, and they also tend to present worse to physical health. So I think that needs to be put into the picture, in that it's not just mental health, it's physical health as well. It's just a situation with mental health is significantly, and it's a lot worse. And as one who used to, as I said in the previous instance, I used to what we call purchase or commission health services. One of the big things in terms of health services provision is about something they talk about need, which is about the capacity of the benefit. And in most physical services, it's largely about to help you, I don't know, fix your eye, fix your leg, fix your whatever, vaccinate you, etc. But with mental health, services by and large have not really been set up to cater to the needs of Black people and Black men. As I see, they've been largely set up to cater to wider societal needs, and societal needs largely have been their own control. And that back to the point that my colleagues have been making. So therefore, if you look at international data, it's not just a UK problem. You know, mental health. There's a huge set of mental health presents in the criminal justice system inside prisons, because that's where it gets seen. It gets seen through that avenue, through the veins of drug and alcohol, through all sorts of means, because it's the issues of helping people is not there. It's not set up to do them there. So they end up in other avenues, which are largely about how we can control or keep things in a better and in a wider place. So it's just looking at understanding that. I think it is a continuum in terms of what's good health and what's bad health. And as colleagues are saying, is understanding that it is okay to have mental health. Is people look at it as all or nothing. It's perfect or it's nothing. Well, it isn't. It's just like physical health. We can go different stages. Some days we're at different levels of mental health. And I think it's about understanding that, us as a community understanding that, and to having those appropriate services so that we can do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Licorish. I can see that Councillor Neil has his hand up. Go ahead. And Councillor Neil, you're currently on mute.
Dreaded unmute, yes, sorry. Thank you. Just wanted to pick up on a couple of points. Firstly, just a reflection of myself when I was talking about post-COVID. You know, we have not reached post-COVID yet. And the points made about epidemic, about the impact of the pandemic on people's mental health and well-being are really strong points, which I know services are anticipating, but it's really important that the council and the local health service build in plans for what that post-pandemic recovery means. But what I really wanted to talk about was something which hit me, about overrepresentation of Black people and Black men in mental health services at the top end, and how it's a responsibility of services, I think, to make sure that everyone's got an equal and equitable chance of gaining access to services early on in terms of prevention and to avoid crisis. I've always been struck that often minority groups in this country don't get a fair deal from public services. And yet in mental health, you've got overrepresentation in terms of drugs, overrepresentation in terms of people being actually held on statutory assessments and sections and so on. And that's not new, but the question is, how can services be working more closely with community organisations, experience, to avoid that? Can't keep on going in this cycle.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. I think we have another hand up by someone who is named as Amelia, but I'm pretty sure that's not your name. If you have your name as Amelia, please rename yourself so that I can address you as your name. But
yes, I don't know how to do it. I was communicating, I think, with yourself trying to get in, and I couldn't get in, and I used my computer I'm using now, but it's come up as somehow Amelia.
No worries. What's your name so I can
Sean.
Sean. Yeah. Welcome to the conversation, Sean.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Okay, so yeah, that's basically kind of touching on a few things I've heard. I didn't start off in the beginning of this, so I don't know if I'm basically echoing a few things that's been mentioned already. But one of the main things I was thinking is basically around in terms of preventions, and it's basically around the fact that the amount of racism and the pressures that basically Black males have to go through is definitely a contributing factor towards why and what's going to basically cause us to basically be suffering and be in the position that we're in, to be honest. So without those things changing, the service can change. We can basically start to integrate into using the services, but we're still going to have the same problem going on with the fact that we're suffering. we're basically not being respected, we're not basically being treated as equals. There's a lot of basically peer pressure and things that we're going through socially that's causing us to basically be disrupted mentally. So if we're not in a basically stable environment, we'll never basically have a stable mental health. So that's the kind of dynamic that's basically going to put out there, to really honest still, so yeah.
Thank you so much, Sean. Rebecca, I think you also wanted to add on to that, right?
Sorry, we can't find our electronic hands, so we keep having to put our physical hands.
No problem, take it away.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of points as well, really. First, I just wanted to say that the point that Vava made earlier with regards to the what's actually happening in the mental health system itself is something that we really need to properly address, because I think there's a couple of things happening at two levels. One is the sort of the macro, if you like, which is the point that I think Sean was making, which is that we've got to look at what's happening systemically, and what's happening. What's the experience of the Black male on a day-to-day basis that's actually contributing towards him actually being part of the mental health system. And then on a micro level, it is what can mental health services do to actually act against the experience that people are having when they're coming into the system. I know that Neil mentioned about the fact that access to services is an issue, but if the Black community, if we in the Black community view mental health services along the same continuum as the justice system, as the criminal justice system, as the education system, if you like, then we're not going to be embracing these services because we don't trust them. So those are two things that need to be considered on the macro and on the micro before we think about how we can best provide better services. We've got to look at what is a fundamental issue, which is we don't trust the services. We don't have we have a deep mistrust. Our experiences through the criminal justice system, it's through other avenues that are not pleasant or positive or actually enhancing our experience. And then when we come into the system, our experience within the system over medication, etc., is also negative. So we can't be surprised if somehow the Black community aren't embracing mental health services when that's the experience. And that's in addition to the fact that mental health per se is viewed negatively in the wider community anyway. And then when we look at our experience within that, there's no surprise that this is the response.
Can I just come in quickly? Just want to touch base on what Balfour has talked about, one of the giants in Brent. Look, I wrote my dissertation on mental health in the Black community, and there are sort of two places in the UK, not just in the UK, but also in the US, across Europe, in fact, where Black people are overrepresented. One is the criminal justice system, and the second is mental health institutions. Those are the only two places where Black people are overrepresented. Now, that has a direct impact on so many things. It touches on what Sean has talked about, what other people have mentioned before. One of the direct effects of this is that when someone, because mental health often it doesn't start as a crisis. It starts with something small, like anxiety and depression, things that you can actually get help with, easy to treat even. There are talking therapies in Brent that you can access freely. You can self-refer and receive support, counseling for free over the phone, face-to-face, even on Zoom and so forth. And you can even go to your GP. I work at GP level. I've worked at GP level and refer yourself to your GP and you'll be provided all the support you need and so forth. But often because of those experiences of being overrepresented, in the justice system and in mental health institutions and coming in contact with mental health through the justice system and so on and so forth, because of, all the many systemic issues in society, when Black people, many of the young Black men I've seen and assessed and spoken to and so forth, when they have experienced those anxiety, when they start experiencing anxiety and depression and so forth, their first thought is not to go to their GP. They will start self-medicating, perhaps using cannabis, perhaps alcohol. And another ways this actually show itself is through violence, toxic masculinity, all those kind of things. This is how you actually see mental health in community. You see a young man being violent or being aggressive and so on and so forth, and you simply think, oh, this is, no, actually that young man is suffering from anxiety or depression. And the anxiety most likely, perhaps started because they had a terrible experience with stop and search. And I've seen people whom stop and search actually affected their mental health in ways in which you cannot even understand. So it's really, really crucial that we touch on all those things, and the more we have this conversation and explain how stop and search, how poverty, how unemployment, and overcrowding at home and so on and so forth, how all of those things affect our mental health, lead to anxiety and depression and PTSD and so on and so forth. The more we have those conversations, the more many young people would actually understand, okay, what I'm experiencing is actually anxiety, is actually depression. And I need to go to this place, I need to speak to talking therapies, I need to speak to my GP, and I need to receive counseling and so on and so forth. Physical activity helps. There are so many things, but we really need to demystify mental health in the community.
Thank you so much, Vava. You've highlighted something that we're definitely going to get involved. We're going to discuss within this conversation, economic inequality and poverty, and how it feeds into mental health issues within the Black community amongst Black men. If you've currently just tuned in to The Beat London, we are having a conversation in partnership with the Brent Council and Brent Health Matters on Black men and mental health by popular demand. We had a conversation last month on COVID-19 and health concerns within the community, and Balfour made a very good point, which reverts back to this conversation in terms of the lack of trust amongst the Black community and the council. I saw that Errol had his hand up, so I'm going to give him the mic, and then after Errol, Rebecca, you can take it away.
I just really want to carry on from what Vava was saying. It's a shame we haven't got anybody here from the justice systems, because they really have they need to be addressed as well, because you have a lot of Black men who go into this justice system regarding an issue and end up in prison, when in reality they should either have been sent to counselling or maybe sectioned. And I've experienced it, seen it myself, where someone who's gone to court and they have been registered with a mental health issue, and the court has decided to do their own assessment on that individual to see if they were well enough to be presented themselves in court, only to have their person say that the person was okay for court, and then that person was sent down, and then within a few months from prison to Park Royal, which was what was asked for in the first place. So a lot of the justices, all they want to do is put a lot of Black people in prison. They're not interested in whether a person has a mental health issue, and even if they do, they tend to push it aside and say that's not as important as the crime. Well, let's deal with the solution rather than the problem. I mean, sometimes I think that they look at the issue of the crime and not realize that there's an underlying issue that person has. Most of the courts don't care. Most of the police force, they do not care. They just want to tick a box, arrest, into prison, and see whatever happens after that. And then after they do their little bit of time, they're in an institution like Park Royal or another mental health hospital. So we need to have, the justice system really needs to look at the issues of mental health also. That's what I think.
I think just to add on, to conclude, add a bit on what we just said, it's also crucial, just for the benefit of doubt. not everyone within the justice system actually understand mental health. Not even within the police understand mental health, because if every police officer understood mental health, stop and search would not be continued, because it does create humiliation that affects people's mental health. So not everyone within the police service understand mental health clearly, and the justice system equally. So one of the things that we need to see going forward, perhaps, is police officer being trained in mental health, understanding how depression or anxiety comes about. What is the effect of having a terrible encounter with a police officer? How does it affect you? How poverty affects you? How unemployment affects you? Look, let's put it this way. Often people living in poverty, we see how it affects their physical health, because you see them eating unhealthy, you see them getting bigger in size, and that leads into things such as diabetes and so on and so forth. If poverty can affect your physical health, then clearly it can also affect your mental health, and that needs to be made clear. And that leads to a bigger question, which all of us in the community needs to talk about. So when we have our younger brothers and sisters and so forth at home and in the community, we need to have that conversation and ask them, see, if you're feeling anxious, how does anxiety look to you? How do you feel? All the symptoms of anxiety needs to be explained. Maybe you're feeling like heavy around your chest, heart palpitation and those kind of things. Those symptoms needs to be explained. Symptoms of depression needs to be explained. And also making it clear, okay, if you're feeling like this, you're feeling anxious or depressed and so on and so forth, there are services you can call, which is confidential, people that you can talk to. There is something called talking therapies, which provide all sorts of therapies in Brent, which is actually brilliant. And the telephone number is actually free. Just give them a call, have that conversation. Go to your GP, have that conversation. So those are, other things. So as well as demystifying mental health in the communities, but also explaining how mental health looks like, the symptoms, and also the services which are available. Things such as talking therapies. I'm going to continue to bang on this, because I understand how incredibly crucial and helpful this service can be. So these kind of things in the community we also need to talk about this.
Thank you so much. You highlighted something that's very crucial and is linked to mental health, crime and justice, which I think will be something that we will prioritize to make a individual and separate topic, because I think that's a big topic in itself, although it is linked to mental health. Before, and Rebecca, you've had your hand up, so go ahead, take it away.
Thank you. Sorry, I finally found my electronic hand, so thank you for that. I just wanted to come back to some points that were raised earlier about seeking help. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that what we know is that early intervention with people leads to far better outcomes. So, for example, with psychosis, what we know is that people that have some treatment and understanding early on in their presentation, so early on with symptoms, if they accept some treatment early on, their prognosis is so much better. The likelihood of them developing schizophrenia, for example, is decreased significantly. And that's the same for, whether it be anxiety or depression. Obviously, what we're talking about is culturally, it is difficult to put yourself forward for services. And so one of the things I just wanted to mention is that we do recognise that within Brent community, we need to be providing more accessible services that are less stigmatising, that people feel more comfortable to attend, that aren't necessarily secondary, what we call secondary mental health services, so that you can get that message, you can have that understanding in an environment within your community, rather than just coming from professionals like ourselves that are here today. So we have been doing some work since I've been in post to help to fund some community-based programs. So, for example, funding a BAME worker for the Recovery Cafe that we have said specifically must be employed by, be representative and employed by somebody with lived experience from Brent. not somebody that's coming outside of the area, because we think that the knowledge and expertise within Brent is vast. And so we are really trying to look at, we know we need to do far more of that. We've recently had to procure some new providers for mental health services. So they've gone through a very formal bidding process. And again, as part of that, the people that have won those contracts are people that have a positive recruitment around diversity, so they ensure that they actually recruit people from within the Brent community again. So what we're trying to do for those people that are involved in mental health services is to ensure that the people that you come into contact with are representative of your community, you can engage with, you can relate to. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there really, as far as what we're trying to build on, because I think that has been removed perhaps in the past in Brent, and we haven't met that need. And if we can meet that need far better across the community, then we might help with helping people to identify earlier on that they've got some mental health problems.
Amazing, thank you so much, Rebecca. I think it's important to discuss what is being done in Brent. I feel like we'll also continue to discuss also people being aware of what's being done in Brent. So I think it's good that things are being done, but sometimes people aren't as aware. I think, Neil, do you have your hand up?
I just want a quick point as well, Claudia, to make, sorry, to add
no problem.
What was just, Rebecca has just said, and it follows on from what Vava said as well. It's just to go back to say that if we're going to talk about where is a good starting point in this discussion in terms of what can we do going forward, I think it's just got to be emphasized again that when we talk about mental health, we're talking about something that is a broad kind of continuum that starts with just a very low level kind of daily stress, if you like, and that applies to all of us. Everybody gets anxious, everybody gets low, everybody feels happy, everybody feels sad, everybody has a mental health of some kind. And so when we talk about mental health, we tend to think only in terms of the extremes. We only think in terms of what we see every day, somebody's behaving in a way that we don't understand on the streets or what have you. And to understand and appreciate that that's all of us, and we all have that potential, because mental health is applicable to all of us. And that's got to be something that we appreciate. And the other thing is that when we talk about initiatives and how we can address the needs of the Black community in terms of mental health, it's not enough to have somebody who looks like you actually delivering that service, because also you have to look at that's important, but equally what's important is to look at how your service may actually mitigate against the issues that we're facing on a daily basis in the community and within the mental health system itself. So I wanted to just bring up those 2 points, really. I think that's quite important.
Thank you so much for that. Vava, I can see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back on what Balfour had touched on, the starting point. So because mental health is so broad, I think it's not just enough to talk about mental health itself. We also need to think about substance use. We need to have a conversation in the community about substance use, how cannabis and the use of other substances actually affect mental health and lead into psychosis. There are evidence that suggests that if a young person, any person, starts smoking cannabis at the age of 16 and continues to smoke cannabis for 8 years until they're 24, 26 years old, they are more likely to develop psychosis. And we also, when we talk about substance use, we need to talk about the kind of cannabis that we are consuming or people are consuming across the UK, across the in the country. Some of them have, other ingredient added to it, which actually affect our mental health. But we also need to talk about domestic violence, how witnessing violence at home, not just physical violence, but also verbal violence, other forms of violence, psychological violence at home, how that affect our mental health, how that affect younger people's growing up's mental health and going into society. We also need to talk about toxic masculinity. We need to talk about, I cannot stop banging about this stop and search, the justice system, how that affects people's mental health. But also crucially, I mentioned this before, I talked about poverty before. The other side of poverty is unemployment. Unemployment has a huge, massive effect on our mental health, and clearly the rate of unemployment in the Black community is incredibly higher than other community in the UK. So those are things we need to talk about, and not to forget your physical health. Going for a run, simply going for a run 3 times a week, you have no idea how great that on itself actually helps you regulate your emotions, your mental health, and it helps keep you safe and at peace. So those are the things, so those are conversations we need to talk about. So it's not just mental health itself, but also how mental health is connected to substance use and to poverty and to DV and so on and so forth. Those are all the conversations we desperately need to have in the community so that we can move forward.
Amazing, thank you so much, Vava. You've mentioned a list of things that are definitely directly linked to mental health and affect the mental health issue within Black men. I also agree with you. I think it's also important from what you've listed to also discuss what is currently being done, what can be done, and how things can move forward. So I'd like us to continue to discuss what is currently being done in Brent, the resources that are available, whether people know these things are available, how they can find out what's available to them, and what steps they need to take in order to find out what is available to them. I'd like to actually direct a question to Derrick, who has been very open and said that he's been fortunate to be around people that have introduced him and allowed him to seek therapy in the past. When it comes to what is available and what's being done, what advice would you give to people that may not have the people around them or may not know what resources and services are available to them?
I mean, the very first thing that I would recommend is to talk to someone and to find a safe person to speak to. It could be your mom, it could be an aunt, it could be a friend. Finding someone who's not going to judge you and understand where you are coming from and who you are is really important, especially when you are quite afraid of going into therapy, and you feel like it's going to be something that's going to be embarrassing and it's something that you have to keep a secret. The first step is being able to talk to someone about it, because your experience that is you shouldn't have an experience in isolation, and you shouldn't feel like what you're going through is something that only you are going through, because a lot of the challenges that you're going through, a lot of your peers or people that are probably going through that experience, especially when you relate to other people. So if you have the same interests, then you're kind of gonna realize through talking to someone that your friend or your parent or your aunt or your teacher is probably going through the same experience, because you're going through the same experiences on a daily basis. If you do that and you kind of want to see a therapist, because I work at Bryne Edutainment, we have the Create Change Therapy Service, which is our therapy service for young people between 8 to 13 years old. And we target young people between that age, because they are learning how to identify who they are and their personality. So we have a Create Change Therapy Service to allow them to express themselves. So those are 2 avenues that we have that are available. I don't know like any other therapist, except I can recommend my auntie Sarah. But that's what I can say for now. But aside from that, from my own personal experience, I know that we have I've just expressed the services that we have right now, and if anything, speaking to a person is extremely valuable.
Thank you so much, Derrick. That's really helpful. If you're currently tuned in, you're listening to the Beat London 103.6, Claudia here, and we are currently hosting a very special conversation today in partnership with Brent Council and Brent Health Matters. We are discussing Black men and mental health. I do encourage you to get involved in the conversation. If you have any questions, if you'd like to share your personal experiences, The socials are the Beat 103.6 FM, and the studio line is 0208 963 9566. And if you're in the Zoom chat as well, feel free to send through your questions and we'll read them out. They'll be addressed. We have an amazing panel here, but this is also an opportunity for you to get involved in the conversation. I can see that before, and Rebecca have their hands up, so go ahead and take it away.
What I wanted to say was, so although I took on my role in July, I worked in Brent the prior year when we were experiencing lockdown. And one of the things that was really apparent was that as a local authority, we're not very good at explaining to people how to access services. Some of the pathways that as professionals we might understand, and it really makes sense to us most of the time. It's not that clear. So one of the things, and also we recognise that a lot of people don't have access to the same levels of digital communications that we might assume everybody has. So there's been some work taking place with Brent Thrive. So Brent Thrive is a group of the different voluntary organisations that work across Brent, different providers with different services. We've collated together all of the services for mental health at different levels and worked on a website. So there will be a website being launched that's separate to Brent Council, so that you will be able to search on a search engine and find all of the mental health services, voluntary day services, cafes, counselling. They'll all be included in this website. And I know we're doing testing this week, so I believe it's going to be launched in October. I think that was really important, that it's very difficult to find all of that information for the different things that people are looking for. And we also need to do more work for those people who can't access digital information. So again, we're trying to look at how can we best reach people, and that has to be through our community partners who are working with more marginalised groups. So we need to do that, in a much more of a leaflet kind of way, and ensure that we're working closely with our partners so they know what's available as well, so that they can share that information. So
amazing. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you so much. You're listening to the Beat London 103.6 FM. We're currently having a conversation on Black men and mental health in partnership with Brent Council and Brent Health Matters. We've been discussing why mental health is such a pressing topic for Black men, why it isn't spoken about enough. And we've started to discuss what is being done here in Brent. And we're going to continue the conversation after a quick break. And we're going to continue discussing issues around economic inequality and poverty and how it feeds into mental health, something that Vava mentioned earlier on in the show. Feel free to get involved in the conversation. Make sure to take down the studio line 0208 963 9566. We'll be back right after the break. And we are discussing Black men and mental health today, right up until 7:30. On FM, online, on your... Guys, we're just going to go for a quick break. It'll just be about 4 minutes, and then I'll invite you back into the chat. But thank you so far. It's so good. Conversation is really good. The passion is great, and I really appreciate all your contributions.
Man accused of plotting a terror attack on major communications infrastructure is to go on trial next summer. 37-year-old Oliver Lewin appeared at the Old Bailey earlier for a preliminary hearing on the charge of preparing acts of terror. And shoppers could face rising bills as meat manufacturers face sharp cost rises due to the soaring price of CO2. The DEFRA Secretary George Eustace says that companies will have to accept a major hike in rates, which could raise to £1,000 per tonne. That's the latest from Radio News Hub. I'm Jules.
How much has COVID cost your business? 40,000? 50? More? Much more? If your business has lost £40,000 or more, COVID claims may be able to help claim that money back. Imagine what you could do with that money. And it's no win, no fee. Even if you've had a claim refused by your insurance company or received a low offer, COVID claims could still help. Text LOST to 60777. Text LOST to 60777 now. Regulated by the FCA.
3.6 FM. Let's talk about black men and their mental health. You told us this was an issue in Brent, so the Beat 103.6 FM and Brent Health Matters are hosting a panel of mental health experts, doctors, local councillors and community members to talk about it. Tune in or join online to ask your questions and have your experiences heard. Wednesday, the 22nd of September, 6 p.m.
Commission aims to engage with local people and consider what it hears along with other evidence to provide recommendations that impact racial discrimination in Ealing. Take action. Be part of the conversation online by searching for Ealing Race Equality Commission or call 0208 825 6100. Let's talk about race in Ealing and tear down the barriers.
Somewhere out there is a what to wear to work dilemma. A helping hand or photocopy of the Swiss Evening, a seat on the rush hour bus. A colleague is also a mate, an extra shift, payday treat, and a well-earned Saturday off. You can find this in a job that you never knew was out there. Search Job Help, the government website that can help you discover support, training, and advice on finding your next opportunity. Job Help will help you find it.
We've all had those moments we tell ourselves it's just nothing. If you've had tummy trouble, such as discomfort or diarrhea for 3 weeks or more, or seen blood in your urine, even just once, don't ignore it. It could be a sign of cancer. It's probably nothing serious, but finding cancer early makes it more treatable. Your NHS wants to see you. Contact your GP practice. Help us help you.
The beat is taking over in the cities.
Yes, you're listening to the Beat on 103.6. Claudia here. We're hosting a live conversation in partnership with the Brent Council and Brent Health Matters. Black men and mental health is the discussion today. By popular demand, last month we hosted a conversation in regards to health concerns within Brent and COVID-19 as well. So this was something that was demanded, and we've been having a good conversation so far, discussing why Black men and mental health is such a pressing topic, why it isn't discussed enough, and what is being done here in Brent. So I just want to say we are currently live on Instagram as well, the Beat 103.6 FM across all social media platforms. Thank you for those that have been getting involved in the conversation so far. I have Chris on Instagram who says that mental health needs to be taken more seriously. Thank you so much for joining in the conversation. If you feel like getting involved, sharing your personal experiences, if you have a question, the studio line is 0208 963 9566, or feel free to share or send through a message if you're in the Zoom call. I can see that Vava has his hand up, so I'm going to take it away and give the mic to Vava.
Thank you very much. I think I wanted to touch base on what we were discussing before the break. For me, there are sort of three elements which I would like your listeners basically to take with them from today. The first one is to get in touch with your GP. Your GP are there to provide you the help and the support you need. So if you're feeling anxious or depressed, or you're experiencing any mental health symptoms, get in touch with your GP. They are your first point of contact, and they would be able to give you all the need and all the support all the support you need. The second one is in Brent, there is actually a 24/7 telephone number, which you can call any time of the day, 24/7. And that number is 0800 0234 650. It's our crisis line. It's our out of hours number. So call the number anytime. If you're feeling anxious or depressed, or you're feeling suicidal, you're not sure about how you're feeling and you want to talk to someone, that's our crisis line. Call the number. Someone, a mental health professional, practitioner like me, would pick up, and we will be able to answer your question and provide you the help that you need. And the third one is A&E. Okay? If you're feeling suicidal, you're feeling like you're in a crisis, you're feeling like you want to self-harm, or you're feeling like you cannot control yourself or keep yourself safe, or you're feeling like you are a danger to people around you, go to A&E, call 999, ask for an ambulance. It will take you to A&E, and you will be seen by a mental health practitioner, psychiatrist in A&E, and provided all the support you need. It's really, really that you act and you don't wait until things get to a crisis point. The sooner you act, the sooner you ask for help, the more help you'll be provided, and the better the prognosis going forward. So it's really crucial that we understand that part.
Amazing, thank you so much, Vava. Could you just repeat the crisis number that you said that is 24 hours?
So our crisis line is 0800 0234 650. So that is 0800 0234 650. It's our crisis line in Brent. It's 24/7. You can call the number anytime, and someone like me will pick up, and we will be able to provide you the help that you need.
Thank you so much, Vava. We have a question that has come through, which is, why is there a shortage of psychiatrists in Brent? And is that one that you would like to take, Rebecca?
Actually, I'm probably not the best person to answer that, because I'm not responsible for employing the psychiatrist. So that's CNWL. I'd like to, I think Sean, was it Sean or Errol that put the question in? Can you just explain why you think there is a shortage? Because I don't. Yeah, I think that would help.
Yeah, you have people in Park Royal right now who are awaiting assessments because there is no one employed there to do the assessment. They have to wait for somebody outside of the hospital to come in and assess them for whether or not they are fit for release. And you've got a lot of Black men in that situation right now. So there's a lot of them have come from prison, and they're in there waiting for assessments.
I think we understand that better now, the context of that. Barbara, I don't know if you want to respond, because I think you understand the context of that that question.
Yeah, I actually work for CNWL, and Parkway is one of the places I work sometimes. There isn't a shortage of psychiatrists in Brent per se. We don't have a shortage at CMHT level. We have 3 teams. All the 3 teams are fully equipped with full-time psychiatrists. I don't have the figures for Park Royal, but what you talked about in terms of, if you're talking about people being admitted, there is a process which has to take place, which is the Mental Health Act assessment. And that Mental Health Act assessment requires certain things to be put in place, which is an AMP has to be present. Balfour is an AMP. We'll be able to tell you a little bit more. You need a Section 12 doctor to be present. You need another independent doctor to be present. You also need a first respondent to be present. So, but I kid you not, I give you my word, no one has ever waited for a mental health act assessment for more than 24 hours. It might take us 2, 3, 4 hours to bring the entire team together for an assessment to take place, but it always takes place within a couple of hours. In terms of discharging people from Park Royal per se, again, I don't have the correct all the information with me, but this is what I can tell you. Often when we are discharging someone from Park Royal, you need to find them a suitable accommodations. So maybe you're discharging them to, because of their care need, to a specific place or a specific placement, and those placements may not be available. So occasionally someone would have to wait for a day or 2 or 3 days until a placement which is suitable has been found. But no one would be kept, because it actually costs us a lot of money to keep someone in hospital. So from a financial perspective, no one will be kept in Park Royal for longer than necessary. There is actually, I can tell you this for free, there are meetings on a daily basis, which we call bed management, which we go through every patient we have in Park Royal, sort of see how they are progressing, how they are doing, what it's missing, what it's perhaps preventing their discharge from hospital, and so on and so forth. So no one is being kept at Park Royal because of, I don't know, no one will be kept in Park Royal for no reasons. So if it's discharged, then we are looking for the right placement, rehabilitation place, and so on and so forth. That could be the reason.
Okay, understood.
Can I, Errol? I would like to say something about that, because I think Vava has said nobody waits for more than a few hours for a Mental Health Act assessment. I'm the head of service who is responsible for the AMP service and the out of hours mental health team. I will acknowledge that we don't always meet that need, that there are people in the community that wait far longer for a Mental Health Act assessment, and we have to prioritise those people that are most at risk to themselves or to other people. And most of the time we get that right. We don't always get that completely right because of the demand. I think that, because I want to be honest about that. Really, I think that I'm very familiar with people being delayed with their discharge and waiting to see a doctor. And I think probably what you're talking about is when we have to find a second doctor around either detaining somebody or discharging somebody needs to be seen by a doctor before they can be discharged. And you're right. There are occasions where the consultant is not available for a couple of days or on that day, and really we need that particular doctor, or we can't find that independent Section 12 doctor to come and join us on an assessment. And that does create delay, but it's really important that we have that independence as well, because what you don't want in that situation is you don't want 2 doctors who work for the same organisation making the decision about whether your liberty is taken away and you are detained in a hospital. So that's why we always have to have that independence. And the AMP sometimes takes a long time to get the right person to be that second doctor. It's not just a case of scrabbling around for any old Section 12 doctor. We might have in our minds, this person has an eating disorder. We are looking for a psychiatrist who has a specialism in eating disorders. And, we are going to work really hard to find the right person to be part of that assessment and make that decision. So there are delays there, I have to acknowledge that, but that's mostly why.
Can I just add as well, there's another element of all of this as well. As somebody who is a mental professional,
you speak up.
You speak up, but we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. I was just adding just to say that as somebody who is a mental health professional and attends Park Royal fairly regularly to do assessments, the other side of the coin is that there's actually such a significant pressure on beds. As Vava said, it actually costs quite a lot of money to actually keep people in hospital. And as such, that because there's such a reduction in the number of beds available and the pressure on beds, it does actually means that there's a real pressure for people to actually be discharged, which is the other side of, which is the other element. That's the opposite of the delays, that there is actually quite a significant pressure on beds for people to be discharged, which does actually contribute to the issue whereby you have a number of predominantly Black males, but Black women as well, who are on this repeating cycle where they are in hospital, they get discharged, and then they come back again, because not only is there pressure on beds that affects the discharge, but also the resources in the community that are available to help people to sort of navigate the society and the journey on the streets is really lacking. And so people end up coming back into hospital because it's a struggle out there. And the impact of COVID is just another element to that which people are already experiencing prior to the pandemic.
That's a cycle.
Thank you so much. Sean, I can see that you've had your hand up for quite a while. Would you like to take it away?
Yeah, I say first of all, respect Rebecca for the honesty, because when Vava was saying about obviously the 24 hours assessment, I was thinking, that don't sound right. But yeah, because basically with myself as well, I remember when I had a crisis and I basically called the GP and basically trying to explain to them what was going on. And because of the fact that, as you kind of mentioned, Rebecca, because there's an urgency around basically suicide, that suicide ideations. So with them hearing that, they was like, okay, then cool, we're going to get someone to basically do an assessment on you and etc. They've done an assessment, but then my issue was basically that the support I got after, because it was like, I told them that I had emotions going up and down. One day was basically really low, next day was really high. And then when they done the assessment, they kind of basically just weren't able to kind of like diagnose or tell me what was going on. They just basically said that I had emotional dysregulation. And I was like, I said, at first I was like, is this the diagnosis? Is this what I have? And they said, no, it's basically the symptoms. And I was thinking, like, okay, what am I going to get from that? Why are you telling me about my symptoms? I've already told you my symptoms. You're basically echoing what I've told you, but basically with jargons. And then they basically referred me to a counselling service, when the counselling service I had to pay for. And it was like basically the counselling service was actually trainees as well. There was trainees, and they said basically what it was because I needed some sort of intense psychoanalytic therapy, I had to basically go for the trainee services, or basically this lower level of counselling, to lay down a foundation, because I didn't really have a support network. I didn't have things in place to kind of deal with the therapy that I was going to go through. So they wanted to basically make sure that I had some sort of safety network in place through the counselling, put things in to basically support me. But then with doing it, I didn't really get the support I was meant to get. When I was talking to the counsellor, they wasn't actually laying down anything to basically make me have a stable environment for the counselling. So I ended up basically cancelling and didn't continue. And then obviously things got worse, with things getting worse. Episodes kept on occurring, and I had to basically call them again. And this day basically was really like, I basically lost myself. And with losing myself, I basically had to kind of tell them I was going through a crisis, which I was. And that's how they basically like insisted on myself, basically got involved and basically provided me with support. So I finally got it, but basically my whole point is I had to kind of really push to actually get this. The first few times I was seen, there was no real support put in place. So you can actually, my experience, you can actually apply and look for it and try and seek support, but sometimes you have to basically really fight for it. Because I've heard as well, like, it depends on how they see your situation, and Black males don't really basically be seen as basically needing support. So for example, one time I went to basically my GP and said to him, I want to basically get a diagnosis, or I want to basically be tested for having Asperger's because of the symptoms I'm displaying. And the GP said to me, you don't look like you've got Asperger's. And I thought, how can you basically just look at me and tell me that I don't look like I've got Asperger's kind of thing? You haven't even asked me a question. This GP wasn't even basically my regular GP. So he is the first time ever talking to me. And he just made an assumption like that. So even though these services are out there, there's a lot of basically stigma and pushbacks and setbacks. That it's like, if I'm a person that's basically very passionate and basically will fight for my rights. So because of that, I will get my support in the end. But a lot of us ain't like that. And to be honest, you shouldn't have to do that anyway. You shouldn't have to basically be fighting and advocating and trying to find this energy to basically get someone to actually listen to you, if that's their job in the first place, to provide you the service. So I just wanted to throw that one out there as well from my experiences.
Thank you so much, Sean, for sharing your experiences. This is what this conversation is about. If you've tuned in, you're currently listening to the Beat London 103.6, and we're having a conversation on Black men and mental health in partnership with Brent Council and Brent Health Matters. If you'd like to share your experiences, if you have any questions, the socials are the Beat 1036 FM. Studio line is 0208 963 9566.
Can I just come back to Sean?
Sean, Bava.
Let Rebecca go first, and then Bava, you can take over.
Sorry, I mean, first of all, I just wanted to acknowledge that sharing your journey and that experience with everybody was, one, really brave, and also really honest and helpful to everybody, I think, that's on this call. You know, you didn't have to do that, and I really appreciate your honesty. And yeah, I'm sure we all really listened and you know, empathized with that situation. Unfortunately, I don't think that what you've described is unusual. So lots of people feel like they have to go into a major mental health crisis to be heard or to get the treatment or support that they're looking for. And unfortunately, that is the way that what we call secondary mental health services are set up. So Vava works for CMWL, and yes, you know, they deal with admissions, they deal with medication, they deal with, people have community psychiatric nurses allocated, care coordinators. And I think one of the things we've got to look at is exactly what you said, Sean. Where is the lower level care and support? So you shouldn't have been having to fund your own counselling in order to receive that, and you should have had some community support, because obviously if we invest in you.
I know, I think we've lost you, Rebecca. Rebecca, can you hear us? Rebecca? Oh no, okay, we're currently discussing Black men and mental health here at the Beat London in partnership with Brent Health Matters and Brent Council, and we've just lost Rebecca, so hopefully when she comes back she'll continue off from where she left off. Hello, Rebecca? Bob, I'm going to give you the mic until Rebecca joins us.
I was going to basically, Sean, express the same gratitude as Rebecca. Thank you for sharing that. That was really, really important for all of us to hear. I see those on a daily basis. There is definitely an issue in regards to, and it's not just in mental health. I'll give you one statistics. Black women in the UK are 5 times more likely to die during giving birth, something so natural, but Black women are 5 times more likely to die during childbirth than their white counterpart. And one of the reasons is because when they are complaining of pain, that I'm in pain, this is hurting me, I need help, they're not given the support or the treatment that they need, because they are seen as you're strong, you're resilient, or you can do this, and so on and so forth. And as a consequence, more and more Black women die during childbirth than other communities in the UK. And that, you know, is also seen in mental health. So people like you and other people will show up, and people would essentially look at you without doing a proper assessment and assume, you know, you'll be able to manage in the community when you're actually asking for help. It's deeply unfortunate, and I'm sorry that's been your experience, but we are improving, we are doing things better. And if you should find yourself in that situation in the future, you have a right to complain. You have a right to complain through your GP, through CQC. You have a right to complain directly to us. You know, the telephone number I've given you, the crisis line, call that line. If you feel the service or the support you've been given is inadequate, call that line, and someone will be able to pick up, and we will be able to see what else we can do to help and support you moving forward. Okay?
Amazing, thank you so much, Vava. And once again, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Sean, it is really appreciated. It's what we organised this conversation for. We are discussing Black men and mental health here at the Beat London in partnership with Brent Council and Brent Health Matters. We've just got just under 5 minutes left of the show. And this is something that I feel like we could spend so much time discussing. So many people are passionate about it. So many people have shared their experiences, their expertise. And I'd really like to give Councillor Neil the opportunity to discuss his part to play in this, as he mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, how you are focusing on strategy when it comes to this. So Councillor Neil, take it away.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. I don't want to speak for too long in the time we've got left. Yeah, we are, I suppose I've been listening very carefully, and I'm very aware that mental health is one of those areas where Brent Council and the local NHS have a lot of responsibility, but we don't actually have a lot of control always. A lot of things are set by national government, whether it's actual mental health legislation, the amount of money we get locally, through to people's economic circumstances. We've got the changes going on at the moment with universal credit, which are actually going to push more people into poverty, and I'd argue is actually going to create further mental health stress. But I just wondered, from the panel we've had tonight, and anyone who's listening, whether people please contribute, what are some changes that people would like to see? If I say, what 3 changes would you want us to say if we came on in a year's time and we were reporting back and you had the same people? What changes would we have wanted to see within mental health services and the mental health system within Brent? Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Neil. I think Derrick has his hand up and would like to answer that question. Take it away, Derrick.
So I wasn't going to answer that question in specifically, but I wouldn't. But I'm still going to answer it. I think there definitely has to be a sort of a positive representation of therapy. I think that is absolutely essential. I think that there needs to be communication about the positive effects of going to therapy, and I think it needs to not be negative. It needs to be seen as something about growth and personal growth and professional growth and understanding yourself, understanding who you are, where you come from, where you're going, and being able to have that conversation is absolutely essential. So that's what I've got to say. And also, because I work with BANG and we have Create Change for young people between 8 to 13 years old, yeah, we provide a therapy service for them. And so if there's any young person that is between 8 to 13 and your mum or your father, or you take care of any young person or know a young person, then the best way to get involved with the Create Change Therapy Service is on the BANG website, which is www.wearebang.com. And you can sign up through looking at some of the projects that we have there. But like Neil has just said, I think it's really important that having conversation and being open and to having conversation and understanding the positive effect of having therapy is essential to growth, and really understanding that mental health is continuous and it needs to be continuously talked about.
Thank you so much, Derrick. And Neil, I can see that you have your hand up. Would you like to add something else? Okay, Neil. I think you're on mute now.
So I left my hand up by mistake. My apologies.
Oh, no problem at all. Sean, I can see that you also have your hand up.
Yeah, okay, that we heard. Yeah, just to answer Neil's question, then I would like to see more community spirit and basically support for people that are basically suffering, because I would say that is one of the driving forces that actually create mental health, or ill mental health, should I say. Not having people to basically, as was mentioned before, offload information to some of the pressures that society has, poverty. If we come together as a community, a lot of these pressures will be reduced, and the strain won't be as hard. So I'd like to basically see a lot more support amongst individuals and society in general. And that obviously will cross over into the support services as well, if people change.
Thank you so much, Sean. We've had such an amazing conversation today. Like I said, this is something that we could probably discuss for such a long time, and because it's something that has been an issue for a while. It's something that is definitely an issue here in Brent and amongst the Black community. I want to thank our panelists for getting involved in the conversation: Dr. Licorish, Rebecca, Councillor Neil, Vava Tampa, Balfour, Derrick, Errol, and you've all contributed to this conversation. Sean, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. This is a conversation that you requested, and we made sure that we delivered. The Beat London, Brent Health Matters, and the Brent Council, and we'll continue to have these conversations on a monthly basis. So feel free to get in contact with us, suggest what you think and you would like us to discuss, and we'll gather the necessary people to join the panel and to host these conversations. I'm going to allow our panelists to just add their final words, their final thoughts. We are running over a little bit, so I'll just give you all a few seconds to add what you'd like to add. Rebecca and Balfour, would you like to go first?
Thank you. First of all, can I apologise? The computer crashed and that's why I disappeared mid-sentence, so apologies.
No problem.
What I did want to say is I know that the panel have done a lot of talking. It would be really interesting and helpful to us to hear far more about what people in the community are feeling they need, what's missing. We know there are gaps. I don't know how long the chat is remaining open for, but I would really genuinely want to read what people have to say and incorporate that into our thinking moving forward.
Amazing, thank you so much.
I would just add that there are, with this issue, there are no quick answers. This is something that we have to be in for the long haul, and there's some things that need to be addressed which are fundamental in terms of the society and the life that we live at this moment in time, and the experience that Black men and women in general have at this particular time. So when we're looking at solutions and the way forward, there's no quick answers. It's got to be a root and branch issue. What we have to think of at the same time is, what can we do in the here and now in terms of mitigating against the problems and the issues that people experience in the mental health system. But if we're talking about what we're going to do in the long term, we're talking about looking at the actual roots of the experience that Black men have on a daily basis. And that's a massive issue, but you know, we've got to start somewhere, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. We do have to start somewhere. So thank you so much. Vava, would you like to add your last remarks?
Yes, so yes, definitely Black people, Black men more specific, are affected, disproportionately affected by mental health than other communities in the UK. But also, it's crucial to understand that there is help out there for all of us to access. So anyone listening who feels they are battling mental health or anxiety or depression or whatever it is, your GP is your first point of contact. Please reach out to your GP, ask for help. There is a crisis line in Brent that you can actually call, and that includes people that live, in Hillingdon, in Harrow, and so forth. And the crisis line is 0800 0234 650. Call the number 24/7. Help will be provided. And if you feel like you're experiencing a crisis or an emergency, you feel suicidal, or you feel like you want to self-harm, or you are a danger to those around you, please go to A&E or call for an ambulance.
Thank you, Vava. Councillor Neil, do you have any last remarks that you'd like to add? Oh, we can't hear you, Councillor. I think you're still on mute now.
Yeah, I was just on mute, yeah. I just wanted to say, we know there are awesome issues, but we can't go on as we are. And I've been listening really carefully, and I just highlight what Rebecca said, that lived experience has got to shape the way services are developed.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Councillor Neil. Dr. Licorish?
Thanks, Claudia. I think it's been really helpful listening to everyone. Thanks for sharing the experiences. I just echo upon it. I think Balfour mentioned it. It's part of the wider issues, the wider work on inequalities. It isn't just that we can do 1, 2, 3, 4 things and we'll solve the experiences, because there are wider, deep-rooted inequalities related to inequality, related to racism, which need to be resolving. However, a couple of things, I think we can do something about it. We can't continue as we're going. We do need to do things. I think if people could put their comments and things that they like to think, as Rebecca's echoed, I think in the chat, I think that will be really helpful in terms of helping us to take services forward. And I'm just picking up a comment here in the chat about, could we have access to the mental health service and make a documentary? And as in, perhaps something like that might be really helpful, because there is a mystique about how to access services. And I know we've put a number here, but there is a mystique to that. So maybe we could do a little video or something like that with yourselves, which will just tell people how do we get into the system, or how can we contribute to the system, which we could share on a bit easier. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Licorish, which reminds me, feel free to drop your contacts in the chat on Zoom. I will leave it running a little longer after this conversation goes live on air. So feel free to just drop your questions in there, continue to have a conversation, and your contact details. I'd like to invite Derrick to have his last remarks, and then Errol.
Yeah, what I would like to say is I would like to say thank you for everyone that has come here today just to speak on mental health. It's really allowed me to open up my mind to mental health and really kind of understand myself a lot more and understand the value of therapy itself. I'd like just to thank Claudia as well for hosting this as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. I didn't know what I was coming into, but I've been so amazed by everything that's been said. I've learned so much from each and every single one of you, and I think that this is serving me very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Derrick. And Errol.
I just want to thank everybody who participated in this, and as I said, it's long overdue, and I think this conversation must go on another show, another time. But I think this is just the beginning. Next to it, I think we have to carry this conversation forward a bit more. And I said, really, been thanking everybody.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Errol. Like I said, I'm going to keep the Zoom open, so continue to have your conversation in the chat and send through your contacts in there so people can know how to contact you. I want to thank our panel once again, Dr. Licorish, Rebecca, Councillor Neil, Vava, Derrick, Errol. Thank you all for getting involved, from our specialists to our community members. It's important for us to have this conversation. We've been discussing Black men and mental health. I'd also like to thank Sean again. I don't think you understand how powerful it was for you to be vulnerable and open and share your experiences with people that are strangers. You don't know who you may have helped, anyone that's tuned in and listening. This is what this conversation is about. The Beat London, Brent Council and Brent Health Matters. And we're going to continue to have conversations like this on a monthly basis. So make sure that you are following us on the socials, the Beat 103.6 FM across Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting this. My name is Claudia. I'm currently the breakfast presenter here at the Beat London, and I will make sure to continue to push the forces that be here so that we continue to have these conversations. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing evening, and I hope this conversation was really beneficial to you.
Thank you.
On your mind. 6 FM.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, guys. You guys were amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Claudia. You did a great job. Thank you.
That was amazing.
Very good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Keep up the good work, everybody.
Thank you.
Also, I'm going to email you, sir. I need to have a word.
Yes, absolutely, Vava. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Take care, everybody.
Councillor Neil.
Take care.
Councillor Neil, I'm here.
Are you there, Vava?
I'm here.
Is Vava still there?
I'm here.
Oh, good. Vava, I wouldn't mind getting your details once this conversation's over, if you don't mind, please.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right. And I got to once again thank Sean from my heart. That was deep. Thanks. And Sean really helped.
I'm trying to find which you do it. Okay. Yeah, I can
Vava,
see.
just put it in the chat.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Good. Got it. See the chat. Okay, there it is. Cool. Two in the chat. Let's have a look. I can see it in there.
I'm typing.
Let me give you my number as well. 078 2 5 5.
Have you seen it?
I'm just looking. I've just sent you mine just in case. But I'll have to come out of this one first, and then we're out of that.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Good. So how do I get back? So that's there we go. Got yours. Have I got it?
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll give you a call tomorrow or something. I just need to talk.
Okay,
thanks.
That's fine. We'll do. Thank you.
Excellent. Cheers, Deji, for hosting. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Have a great evening.
Well done, excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to be closing. Sorry, I'm going to be closing this meeting now. But thank you very much. Do appreciate everyone that's come in. Enjoy the rest of your week and the weekend.